أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah we are continuing from where the last video abruptly ended, inshallah, and we will carry on talking about the two incidences that took place in the early life of Muhammad Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam as a young man pre-Nubuwah. The first was when he was with Zayd bin Harith, which was his adopted son, and he was doing the tawaf. And this may sound odd to people because the tawaf in some sense was still going on, but this is from pre-Islamic Arabia. People did some sense of Safa and Marwa in terms of traversing, but for different reasons. There were many things that took place before that may have remnants of rituals that were left by the previous prophets, Allahu Alam. But there were incidences like this where you will find some things that took place. And so also it will make us question that Islam maybe it's not as simple as that Islam just came to replace the rituals, but there were other aspects of life that also that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted Muhammad Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam to radically change. Anyway, the incident was when he was talking to Zayd bin Harith. They were going around, and Zayd bin Harith, he had the impulse to go near these two gods. They were brass gods, they were made of brass, Is'af and Na'ila, and he went towards them and he went to touch them. The Prophet ﷺ, even pre-Nubuwah, with the fitrah of Islam, he said, look, don't touch it, leave it alone. And so he had no really any kind of affection for these gods, he not for the Jahili way of life at that time. There was one time where the Prophet ﷺ pre-Nubuwah had, as a young man, a curiosity, as we as insan are made to have. Subhanallah, even it was Adam alayhi salam, that many of the way he was, it was that he was curious as well, you know, about the tree that he shouldn't go near. وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, don't go near the tree. But there is some curiosity that lies in human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in every human being. And this is why Muhammad Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam, being like any other human being in some ways, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشْرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. That say, I am human like you. So there were things that we need to recognize that were like anybody else with Muhammad Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam, that we do not take him to such great heights that we can now not relate to him in any single way, because this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, why he sent the message via a human being and not via angels, because this was so that we could relate to the life of another human being, a fellow human being. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions many times, and we sent their brother Muhammad, we sent their brother Ibrahim, we sent their brother Musa. Are you to say that we sent them someone from amongst them, someone who they recognize, who speaks the same language, who understands the situation around them, and that those people understand him? The second incident was when the Prophet ﷺ had this curiosity, and he said, I want to see what they are doing in the town. And there was usually there would be partying, and there would be young men like the Prophet ﷺ of his age, that is, and they would be celebrating and they would be doing all sorts of things. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I want to go and see what's going on. He said to his fellow shepherd, I'm going to go take a trip down there, see what's going on. And then as he was going down there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him fall asleep. And the next thing you know, the Prophet ﷺ, he wakes up and he finds party's over. Nothing happened, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what made him fall asleep. He gets up, he goes home. Another time the Prophet ﷺ, in another narration, that he was curious about what was going on, and yet again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him feel tired as he was going in that direction, and he just fell asleep. And subhanallah, this is the protection that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, following on from this, there is the career of Muhammad Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam, because he did much before 40 years of age when he received revelation, the wahi. For example, his life as a shepherd had a big impact on his prophetic training, as it must have done with all of the prophets, because many of the prophets had jobs and occupations, and one of the common occupations of many of the Anbiya was that they were shepherds. And there are some advantages that were inbuilt into them out of the occupation or the job. There are some transferable skills, one could argue, that the prophets were given in the job of being a shepherd. And the Prophet Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam himself said, every one of you is a shepherd, and each and every one of you will be asked about his flock, meaning that the Imam will be asked about his people, whether he is a shield from which behind the Muslims fight and protect their honor and their dignity. The father will be accountable for his household, about whether he provides for his children. So everybody will be accountable for their varying responsibilities and amana that has been placed upon them. And so the Prophet ﷺ learnt many lessons. I think the obvious lesson would be that the simplicity of being a shepherd, the fact that it gave him time in the open air, within the clean air, under the stars, to think and to contemplate about the creation. And the creation in itself is the alamat, it is the signs itself, and it points towards the Creator. Because if you look at the beauty and you look at the artistry, then you know that there must be someone, there must be a being out there who created all of these things and who designed all of these things and gave all of these things purpose. So the Prophet ﷺ had a simple life as a result. You will find many times people who work even today in the city, in Docklands, or if they work in big banks, you will find that sometimes it's very easy to become more corrupt than maybe working in a market stall somewhere selling vegetables. Because at the very least, selling vegetables in a market stall won't involve the level of lying and cheating and free mixing and pressures and all sorts of the kinds of people that you will meet working in city life. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ was protected from this, the trade business and all of these things at that time, in his early age. Secondly, I've mentioned that he was allowed to contemplate on the creation itself, because many of us, we live today in a concrete jungle. We live in a concrete world. We live in things where, because they are man-made, one would argue it's very tempting for us to become enamored by man. To say, I'm an awe at man. Man can create so many amazing things. They create the iPhone and the iPad, and they create massive buildings and amazing structures. But subhanAllah, who gave us the ability? Who gave us the ability to be able to have a mind to design these things? Who gave us the materials to make these iPhones and these buildings? Who gave us the arms and the legs to be able to physically make them? Because just with the mind, you cannot manufacture, you cannot make these things. Who gave us the ability to use these tools? Who gave us the previous information so that we may pass this on and develop it so that we can build greater structures and even more complicated technology? Who gave us these things? Subhanallah, today you have a man who he sees a star, and because he saw the star through his Hubble telescope or whatever, he'll name the star after himself. Subhanallah, you name a star after yourself. These are signs to show who gave you the eye to see, who gave you the ability to invent, who gave you the ability to create and gave you the materials to make the telescope so that you could see the star. But man, he is enamored with himself. He sees a star and he thinks, look how amazing I am. I'll name it after myself so that I'm remembered. Subhanallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability, the knowledge, the materials, the tools, the know-how. He gave us all of these things. And this is something that definitely the Prophet Muhammad Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam was amidst the environment to be able to contemplate about. The other benefit of being a shepherd was in relation to the flock itself, that it taught him to have responsibility and amana. Because if you are rearing sheep, then if you lose a sheep, one of the sheep, it's really in the end your fault. You cannot say, I didn't know, I wasn't looking. Or when you have amana, when you have responsibility, whether you did it, whether it's your fault or whether it's not your fault, it is your fault. Because your responsibility, your amana, is to protect these sheep. So subhanAllah, this is one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ was taught at an early age, which we should think about. If we want to cultivate, if we want the seed of iman to flourish in us, then maybe we need to think about how ourselves, are we responsible people? How do we look at amana? How do we look at responsibility? Do we shun responsibility? Do we make many excuses in our lives? We should think about this, because this itself is a tilling of the soil in preparedness for this potency of iman that will become something great in us if we develop these aspects about ourselves. So one of them was the patience, the simplicity, and also the amana. Going on to the patience, as a shepherd, you have to deal with many sheep. Some sheep, they like to just play around. They're not going to get into the gate. You cannot say to the sheep, look, it's late. I don't like the fact that it's getting late, it's past my shift. Sheep doesn't care. He's going to play, he's going to have fun. He doesn't want to go into the pen. So he's not going to go into the gate. So you have to be patient. All sheep are different. Subhanallah, the shepherd must know that the characteristics are different between each sheep. Some are more playful, some are obedient, some are follow others. So there's a way to rear them in knowing how to deal with each sheep as an individual and each sheep as a collective. Subhanallah, these are skills for how to deal with society. Inshallah, we will see these things later on, inshallah, in the da'wah of the Prophet Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam. Also, the zuhud, the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was strengthened and hardened out there in the wilderness, it made him able to withstand the harsh conditions in the battles that he took part in later on, where you are used to the intense heat and struggle and difficulty of the climate and the cold nights and the intense heat in the day. He was prepared for these things because this was the general life of a shepherd anyway. Subhanallah, these are the qualities that a shepherd has, and I will leave it at this point, inshallah, and we will go into the later parts of the life of the Prophet Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam, looking at his marriage to Khadija Radiallahu Anha, and also looking at how he began, as we all do when we become older, becoming involved in his community and to do with the local problems and the things that were going on in Quraysh, and how the Prophet Salallahu Alayhi Wasallam looked at these problems and what kind of effect it had on him. Sallallahu Alayhi Wasallam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم.